liberal talk show host tries to humiliate Sylvester Stallone. His epic clapback goes viral. In the heart of Los Angeles, nestled among the glitz and glamour of Hollywood, lay the studios of The Progressive Pulse, one of the most popular liberal talk shows on television. The show was hosted by none other than the charismatic and outspoken Robert Quinn, known for his sharp wit and unapologetic stance on social issues. Quinn's popularity soared as he fearlessly tackled topics like climate change, income inequality, and gun control, often leaving his guests either impressed or infuriated. One crisp autumn evening, the studio was buzzing with anticipation. Robert Quinn had just announced that he would be interviewing Sylvester Stallone, the legendary actor who had become an icon of American cinema. Stallone was set to discuss his latest film, a gritty action thriller that Quinn had praised extensively. However, what Quinn didn't anticipate was the storm brewing behind the scenes, a storm that would soon shake the very foundations of the entertainment industry. Quinn had always harbored a deep-seated resentment towards Stallone. While Stallone's films were undeniably successful, Quinn believed they lacked depth and substance. He saw them as mindless entertainment that distracted from more pressing societal issues. This resentment had festered over years, and now Quinn saw the perfect opportunity to settle the score. Before the cameras rolled, Quinn instructed his team to prepare a series of pointed questions designed to undermine Stallone's credibility and challenge his artistic integrity. They wanted to make it clear that even a man of Stallone's stature could not escape scrutiny in their progressive bubble. Little did Quinn know, Stallone had his own plans for the evening. As the cameras began to roll, the tension in the room was palpable. Robert Quinn, dressed in a tailored suit and exuding confidence, welcomed the audience with his signature grin. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice carrying through the microphone, "tonight we have a special guest who needs no introduction. Please welcome the one and only Sylvester Stallone." The audience erupted into applause as Stallone walked onto the stage, his presence commanding and magnetic. Dressed in a casual yet stylish ensemble, Stallone greeted Quinn with a firm handshake before taking his seat. The energy between the two men was electric, but there was an underlying current of hostility that neither Quinn nor the producers could ignore. Quinn wasted no time diving into the interview, his tone bordering on condescending. "Sly, your latest film has been making waves, but I have to ask, do you ever feel like you're just churning out the same formulaic action movies?" The question hung in the air, and the audience leaned forward, sensing the undercurrents of tension. Stallone's face remained composed, his famous rugged features barely betraying any emotion. "Robert, I appreciate your candor," he replied smoothly. "But I believe every film I make has its own unique message and purpose, whether it's about redemption, sacrifice, or standing up against tyranny. These themes resonate with audiences on a deeper level." Quinn smirked, clearly not satisfied with Stallone's response. "But isn't it true that many critics argue your films lack the intellectual depth found in other genres? Do you think that's fair?" Stallone's eyes narrowed slightly, but his voice remained calm. "Criticism is part of the job, Robert, but I've always believed that art can serve multiple purposes. Sometimes it's about entertaining people, giving them a break from reality, and sometimes it's about delivering powerful messages. My films aim to do both," Quinn pressed on relentlessly. "So, you don't think there's room for improvement in your storytelling techniques? Don't you want to challenge yourself creatively?" Stallone leaned back, crossing his arms. "I respect all forms of creativity, Robert, but I also believe in staying true to my roots and what I know works. I've been fortunate enough to connect with audiences worldwide, and I wouldn't change that for anything." The audience shifted uncomfortably, sensing the growing animosity. Quinn seemed determined to provoke Stallone further, his questions becoming increasingly pointed and personal. "It seems like you're content with the status quo, Sly. Is that Why you haven't ventured into more socially conscious roles? Why aren't you using your platform to address real-world issues? Stallone's demeanor changed abruptly. His jaw tightened, and his eyes flashed with a mixture of frustration and resolve. Robert, I understand where you're coming from, but I believe everyone contributes to society in different ways. For me, creating characters and stories that inspire people is my way of making a difference. It doesn't mean I'm complacent or unwilling to grow. It means I choose to do it in a way that resonates with me and my audience. Quinn's face twisted into a sneer. So, you're saying you're satisfied with the impact your films have? That you're not interested in using your influence to push for significant change? Stallone's voice rose slightly, the first signs of genuine emotion surfacing. I've always been open to change and growth, but I also believe in respecting individual choices and passions. If someone finds value in my work, then I consider that a form of positive impact. And let's remember, change can come in many forms. It doesn't always have to be through activism or political commentary. The exchange had reached a boiling point, and the audience could feel the tension building. Quinn, sensing victory, pressed harder. But isn't there a risk that by sticking to the same formula, you might miss out on opportunities to evolve and stay relevant? What if future generations see your films as outdated or irrelevant? Stallone's expression hardened, and he leaned forward, his voice low and intense. Robert, I've been in this business long enough to know what works and what doesn't. My films may not fit into your definition of relevant, but they have stood the test of time. And if the future sees them differently, that's something I'll accept. But until then, I'll continue doing what I love and what connects with millions around the world. The audience held its breath, waiting for Quinn's next move. The interview had taken a dramatic turn, and the outcome was far from certain. Quinn, sensing that he had finally cornered Stallone, decided to escalate the confrontation. With a smug smile, he leaned forward and said, "Well, Sly, it sounds like you're content with playing it safe. But let's talk about some specific moments in your career. Your political views have often been at odds with progressive values. Take your support for Donald Trump during the 2016 election. How do you justify that?" The studio fell silent, the weight of Quinn's accusation hanging heavily in the air. The audience exchanged uneasy glances, aware that this was likely the climax of the interview. Stallone's expression remained stoic, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of annoyance. "I supported Trump because I believed he had a unique perspective on leadership and business that could benefit our country," Stallone stated calmly. "Many people misunderstood my position, but it was based on a belief that he could bring fresh ideas to the table. I've never shied away from voicing my opinions, and I stand by them." Quinn's face contorted with disdain. "But isn't it true that Trump's policies have been widely criticized for their negative impact on marginalized communities? How can you reconcile supporting someone who promotes divisiveness and discrimination?" Stallone's voice grew firmer. "Robert, you're oversimplifying things. Trump's policies had both positive and negative aspects, and it's unfair to paint him with such a broad brush. I respected his approach to governance, and I still believe that some of his initiatives were beneficial, even if others weren't." Quinn's tone became increasingly aggressive. "Beneficial? You really think so? Let's talk about his stance on climate change, for instance. Trump's denial and withdrawal from the Paris Agreement set us back decades in the fight against global warming. How do you defend that?" Stallone's composure began to fray. "Robert, I understand your concerns about climate change, but I also believe that progress can be made through dialogue and compromise. Trump's actions were controversial, but I think it's important to look at the bigger picture and the steps being taken to address these issues." Quinn's eyes narrowed. "Dialogue and compromise? Are you suggesting that Trump's denialism was somehow justified? That's absurd. And what about his administration's rollback of environmental protections? Isn't that directly harming our planet? Stallone's patience seemed to be wearing thin. Robert, I'm not here to defend everything Trump did, but I do think it's important to acknowledge that complex issues require nuanced discussions. Climate change is a serious problem, and while I may not agree with every decision made, I also believe in giving credit where it's due. Some of the initiatives under his administration did contribute positively to the environment, albeit not as much as we'd hoped. The audience stirred uneasily, sensing the mounting tension. Quinn, seeing an opening, pushed even harder. Positive contributions? Really, Sly? You're going to sit here and tell us that rolling back protections and ignoring scientific consensus is somehow beneficial? That's a dangerous line of thinking. Stallone's voice rose, the first signs of genuine anger surfacing. Robert, you're twisting my words. It's not about swallowing anything. It's about understanding the complexities of leadership and the need for varied perspectives. I respect your passion, but I won't let you reduce my beliefs to sound bites. The tension in the room was almost tangible, and the audience could sense that the interview was reaching its climax. Quinn's relentless questioning had pushed Stallone to his limits, and the actor's carefully maintained composure was beginning to crack. The stage was set for a dramatic showdown. Just when it seemed that Robert Quinn had successfully cornered Sylvester Stallone, the legendary actor unleashed a retort that left the audience gasping in astonishment. The air in the studio thickened with anticipation as Stallone's eyes locked onto Quinn's, his voice steady but laced with a newfound ferocity. "Let's talk about your track record, Robert," Stallone began, his words dripping with a calculated coolness. "You're quick to criticize and judge others, but what have you done to create real, lasting change? You sit in your ivory tower, pontificating about issues you've never had to personally confront." Quinn's smirk faltered for a moment, his confidence visibly shaken. "Excuse me, Sly, but I've dedicated my career to advocating for progressive causes and pushing for social justice. My platform is used to raise awareness and inspire action." Stallone's eyes narrowed, his tone cutting. "Advocacy is commendable, Robert, but it's not just about talking, it's about doing. Have you ever stood up for someone who was unfairly treated? Have you ever risked your reputation or faced backlash for speaking truth to power? Or do you simply prefer to criticize those who have?" The audience leaned forward, captivated by the sudden shift in dynamics. Quinn's usual charm and charisma seemed to falter under the weight of Stallone's piercing gaze. "Let's talk about your recent charity event," Stallone continued, his voice gaining momentum. "You claimed it raised millions for underprivileged children, but sources close to the organization say that less than half of the funds actually reached the intended beneficiaries. Isn't that a bit hypocritical, Robert? Claiming to help while lining your pockets instead?" Quinn's face flushed with anger, his hands balling into fists. "That's slanderous. My organization is transparent and accountable. Every penny is accounted for and goes directly to those in need." Stallone's voice grew louder, his words cutting through the air like a knife. "Transparency and accountability are crucial, Robert, but they don't change the fact that your actions speak louder than your words. You criticize others for their perceived shortcomings, but you seem to forget that you're not infallible." Quinn's voice trembled with rage. "This is defamation. I demand you retract those statements immediately." Stallone's eyes blazed with a fierce determination. "Defamation? Hardly. I'm merely stating facts. And let's not forget, Robert, that you've been accused of exploiting your platform for personal gain. Your show has been accused of favoritism and biased reporting. Yet you continue to preach about integrity," the audience murmured, their sighs darting between the two men. Quinn's smug facade crumbled further, replaced by a mask of disbelief and indignation. "You can't prove any of that," Quinn sputtered, his voice rising in pitch. Stallone's voice rose in tandem, each word a hammer blow. "Prove it? How about your own tax records, Robert? Allegations of tax evasion have been swirling around you for years. Are you prepared to share them publicly to clear your name? Quinn's face paled, his hands shaking. That's a low blow, Sly. Those allegations have been dismissed multiple times. Stallone's eyes blazed with conviction. Dismissed or not, they still exist, and they raise questions about your integrity. You criticize others for their past mistakes, yet you seem unwilling to be held accountable for yours. Hypocrisy is a dangerous thing, Robert. The studio fell silent once more, the weight of Stallone's words hanging heavily in the air. Quinn, realizing he was losing control, tried to regain the upper hand. Enough of this, Sly. You're deflecting from the real issue here. Your support for Trump and his harmful policies. Stallone cut him off, his voice thunderous. My support for Trump, Robert, was based on a belief that he could bring fresh ideas to the table. It wasn't blind allegiance, it was an informed choice. And while you sit here criticizing me, you fail to acknowledge the complexity of leadership and the need for varied perspectives. Quinn's face twisted with rage. Complexity? You're defending someone who promotes division and hatred, Stallone's. A voice grew even louder, drowning out Quinn's protests. Division and hatred, or perhaps a desire to shake up the status quo? Trump may have been divisive, but he also brought attention to issues that needed addressing. And while you may not agree with his methods, you can't deny the impact he had. The audience watched in stunned silence, the room charged with electricity. Quinn's usual poise had evaporated, replaced by a desperate attempt to regain control. Impact? At what cost, Sly? His policies harmed countless people, especially marginalized communities. Stallone's eyes blazed with a fierce determination. Marginalized communities are harmed every day, Robert, regardless of who's in power. The real question is, what are you doing to help them? Are you merely criticizing, or are you actively working to create change? The studio fell silent once more, the weight of Stallone's words hanging heavily in the air. Quinn, defeated and humiliated, slumped back in his chair, his usual charisma and confidence shattered. The audience, sensing the end of the confrontation, held their collective breath, waiting for the final blow. Stallone's voice softened, but his message remained resolute. Robert, it's easy to point fingers and criticize, but true strength comes from standing up for what you believe in. Until you can embody those qualities, your criticisms will fall flat. The interview ended abruptly, the camera cutting to a shot of the studio's empty seats. The audience remained in stunned silence, their minds reeling from the intensity of the exchange. As the credits rolled, the magnitude of Stallone's comeback became apparent. The tables had turned, and the liberal talk show host had met his match. The moment the interview aired, it sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry and beyond. Social media platforms lit up with reactions, ranging from disbelief to admiration. Many viewers praised Stallone for standing up to Quinn's relentless attacks, while others criticized him for engaging in political discourse. News outlets scrambled to cover the fallout, dissecting every word and gesture. Within hours, Mr. Stallonev's Quinn trended globally, with hashtags like Truth Wins and Respect the Legend flooding Twitter and Instagram. Celebrities and fans alike took to social media to express their thoughts, with many commending Stallone for his eloquence and integrity. Actors, directors, and politicians weighed in, some supporting Stallone's stance and others defending Quinn's right to question. The next morning, headlines screamed across newspapers and online news sites. Sylvester Stallone shuts down Robert Quinn in epic interview clash, read one prominent article, while another declared, Hollywood legend takes stand against liberal media. The viral video of the interview garnered millions of views within days, with comment sections exploding with passionate debates. On social media, fans shared clips of Stallone's most impactful retorts, praising his ability to articulate complex ideas with clarity and passion. User Agent Movie Buff 1984 tweeted, "Sly just proved that intelligence and charisma aren't mutually exclusive. Respect." Meanwhile, a progressive voice posted, "While I disagree with Stallone's politics, his defense was impressive. Quinn needs to learn how to handle criticism better." The controversy also sparked discussions about the role of celebrities in political discourse. Some argued that actors and entertainers should stick to their craft, while others believed they have a responsibility to use their platforms for good. Opinion pieces flooded publications, with experts weighing in on the implications of such high-profile clashes. Quinn's network, under immense pressure, issued a statement distancing themselves from Quinn's aggressive tactics. "We value respectful dialogue and regret any discomfort caused by the interview," they wrote. "We will review our practices to ensure fair and balanced conversations in the future." Stallone, meanwhile, received an outpouring of support from his peers. Friends and colleagues rallied around him, praising his courage and intellect. Director James Cameron tweeted, "Sly showed the world why he's a legend. True strength comes from standing up for what you believe in." Actress Halle Berry added, "Kudos to Sly for handling himself with grace and dignity. We need more voices like his." However, not all responses were positive. Critics accused Stallone of dodging the issues and questioned the validity of his arguments. Conservative commentators seized the opportunity to rally behind him, framing the incident as a victory for free speech and against liberal bias. Fox News ran a segment titled "Hollywood Icon Slams Leftist Host," garnering significant traction among their viewers. The impact extended beyond social media and news coverage. Within weeks, Stallone's latest film saw a surge in ticket sales and streaming numbers. Fans who had previously ignored his work now flocked to theaters and platforms, eager to see the man who had so boldly defended his beliefs. Merchandise sales for his iconic characters skyrocketed, with collectors clamoring for memorabilia. Quinn, on the other hand, faced a backlash that threatened his career. Viewers began boycotting his show, leading to a noticeable drop in ratings. Advertisers pulled their support, citing concerns over Quinn's aggressive style. The network was forced to reconsider their approach, with Quinn eventually issuing a public apology for his conduct during the interview. The interview also sparked broader conversations about the nature of public discourse and the responsibilities of media personalities. Academics and journalists delved into the implications of such confrontational interviews, exploring the potential consequences for both parties involved. Think tanks and advocacy groups launched campaigns to promote healthier dialogues, emphasizing the importance of mutual respect and understanding. In conclusion, the interview between Sylvester Stallone and Robert Quinn marked a pivotal moment in the way public discourse is conducted and perceived. It demonstrated the power of respectful, informed dialogue and the importance of fostering a culture of understanding and mutual respect. As society continues to grapple with complex issues, the lessons learned from this incident will undoubtedly shape the way future generations engage with one another, striving for a more inclusive and enlightened public sphere.